Thank you. And since we've started off with convergence being mentioned, this isn't about convergence at all. I don't like the word. Convergence suggests there's separate streams and different things having to come together. There's security. There aren't different areas that somehow have to be tied together. There is an approach to security. And this is all about training. And it's about the way that we train. Now, I've got a background in training people in cybersecurity. I've done it for about 5 years now professionally, and before that, various mentoring and informally. I've got a master's in the subject, so I'm allowed to speak about how the training goes. Over those 5 years, I've trained somewhere around 700 people who are now cybersecurity professionals, which means I've got some idea of the best training you can get to bring people into the industry. And there's a problem in that there are boxes that we train people in. So when we're training people in cyber, we teach them about the technology, and we might teach them basics of things like risk management, and we might teach them some security standards. Now, whether this applies to different domains of security, I'm not qualified to speak on, but I see a huge problem with that. If anyone here is familiar with training and education, you may be aware of Bloom's taxonomy, which is an approach to how people learn things. I'm not going to touch on that one because it doesn't apply here, but I am going to talk about the structure of observed learning outcomes, or SOLO for short. Stick with SOLO. This is a model of how people learn lessons and how they develop thought within a discipline. So it starts with pre-structural. Pre-structural is before you've got any idea of the skill set you're trying to build. Your answers to things will be completely unrelated to it. They'll be off topic. This is right at the beginning, before people understand anything about it. Next, unistructured. You've got some idea, you've got some facts. You've got an idea that there's this thing called cybersecurity or IT or technology, and you might start to give very relevant answers, but they're prepared. They're the type of things you might get out of ChatGPT. They are single, disconnected, they're not tied to anything else. Then we go into multi-structured thought. This is where it starts to get more useful. This is convergence. This is where we start going, okay, we've got these different models and we can see they sort of relate to each other. Then we've got relational. That's the relationships. That's where you start to go, maybe there's something beyond the models. Maybe there are mappings we can apply, maybe there are thoughts we can use, maybe we can inquire into it and start to carry things across from, say, cybersecurity to physical. Well, we've got access control in both. Maybe it's not that different between the two. Whether it's a firewall or a manned door, it's still access control. It's still the same concepts that we're working with. And then we've got the most powerful one. Extended abstraction. This is where you start to move away from the domains entirely. Instead, you've got higher level models that you can apply to different areas. Now, an example of this would be something like access control. It can be applied everywhere. That's a model. It doesn't have to apply to a particular domain. And you can take it and you can see how it will relate to other places. You're starting to get the pattern recognition so that when you encounter a new domain, you can say, that's the same as that. And I can take this tool that I've developed, that I've built in my head, and apply it to it. The majority of training in cybersecurity stops at most at the multi-structural, where you've got an awareness that other things exist. That relationship isn't taught. And there are loads of training courses out there. I've yet to find one for cybersecurity or anything else, but as I said, I've got limited experience outside of that, that starts to teach those abstractions, that starts to teach how they work together, how you can apply them in different places. And there's a real problem with this. So let's take something like insider threat. So which domain does insider threat live in? There we go, nice animation. It does, it lives in all of them. It's relevant to all of them. It's abstract from any particular skill set. And that applies to almost everything you can think of. Now, I kind of look at the way we do training a lot of the time, and this includes in academia, it includes vocational, it includes coaching and mentoring in organisations, as something like an iceberg. At the top, most training. That will consist of procedures. We teach people the procedures. We teach them technical detail. We might teach some simple models. If you're in IT, you may have heard of the OSI model of networking. You may have heard of the Mott and Bailey defensive model, perimeter security. That's a model of security. But we teach them within the domain. We teach them as a fact. And what we don't teach, clicker is working, all of the other stuff, the stuff that lets you take that knowledge and those skills and apply it more generally. So when we're talking about convergence, often we're talking about, well, let's train these people in this other domain, when what we should be saying is let's uplift them, let's pull them away from that domain, teach them these deeper skills, teach them critical thinking and research so they can go out, develop their own models and apply them in other areas. I've got a scenario for you. So this is an instant. And we have, first of all, facilities detect a fire alarm being pulled as an isolated domain, sitting on their own. They do the sensible thing, they evacuate the building while it's investigated. Security detect that a door has not closed. Well, there's an evacuation going on, there's more important things, they're busy getting out to the car park, gathering there. Jeff is seen going in with his fire marshal's vest to the building. That's seen by someone in the car park, HR, someone like that. Now, which of these is an instant? Who's going for the fire alarm being pulled? Yeah? Door left open? Jeff going in? It's a story. The fire alarm being pulled and facilities being aware, great, okay, they've done the right thing. What they've failed to do is say there's no fire detected to the security team. The evacuation, that went fine, that one worked. Door being left open, someone just dropped a wedge in it. Maybe as they went out, maybe they were waiting outside the building. Jeff, who was the fire marshal on Monday, well, he was fired on Tuesday. And this is Thursday. And by Friday, they've discovered there's half a dozen laptops missing. So which domain does this instance sit in? Is it cyber, information security? There's laptops missing, there's data on them. Is it physical? There's assets going missing. Is it personnel? We get these huge problems when we've got these different domains, when we've separated things. And I can't emphasize enough how painful that is to see, particularly from the cyber side, where I think we're probably most guilty of it, saying it's technology. But I have a lot of conversations with people in physical security who tell me, oh, I don't do that cyber stuff. And I get it, I absolutely do. I've had those conversations for years. I remember in the 90s, people would tell me, oh, I don't do IT. Does anyone in here not do IT? Anyone not got a phone, not got a computer? So there has to be an acceptance on all sides that they are not separate domains. The important bit isn't the cyber stuck at the beginning. It's the security at the end. Same with physical, same with bio, same with financial. I don't care which domain you want to talk about. It is the same fundamental models, the same fundamental approaches, and we don't teach them aside from within that domain. So we are massively cutting down on the potential for those tools to be properly used. When I have conversations with people in physical security and they start telling me that they don't do cyber, I like to start talking about risk and access control and identification and authorization and authentication. And you know what? All of those things happen in physical security. And they aren't different just because they're in cyber. They really aren't. So when we're teaching, when we're training people, we have to do better at saying, this is just a model. You can use it elsewhere. Now, again, cyber, we're really guilty of this. We invent terminology. I heard quishing the other day. It's phishing with a QR code. Do you know what phishing is? It's a deception-based attack. That's it. It doesn't matter which vector it uses. It's still trying to deceive a human. Doesn't matter if it's watering holes, spear phishing, whaling, quishing, vishing, smishing. All of those are real terms. Don't ask me why. You can buy tools to defend against each one of them individually. But they are all deception-based attacks. So fundamentally, they're all human. They're all about how humans can be fooled, how humans can be deceived. And they're all about risk. They're all about threats, aiming to do something, to exploit a vulnerability, to use an attack vector, to cause an impact against an asset. If we lean into teaching that sort of understanding of risk and threats and vulnerabilities and impacts, suddenly, I hope, no guarantee of this, but suddenly I think we'll get people talking more about those fundamentals and using them. So instead of having cyber people say, I don't do physical security, and physical people say, I don't do cyber security, we'll get useful conversations. Currently, it's like a whole load of people sitting in a room speaking different languages. But ultimately, it is the same models underneath. So what we really need to do, I just wanted a funny picture here, is get rid of this whole box idea of different domains, particularly in the way that we train people. I'm not saying you shouldn't teach people the standards for physical security. They're useful, but don't stop there. Explain that this is why they came about, this is what they mean, and these are the fundamentals, these are the abstract ideas behind them, and you can apply them to other systems. And the other bit that comes into it, far too often, in cyber and physical, I've heard people saying, oh, I don't do that, that's, beneath me. On both sides, admittedly more from the cyber, which is really depressing. But we need a lot less gatekeeping. Now, I'm not saying there isn't room for specialists. There absolutely is. Deep specialisms are important. But you need people who can sit there and interpret between them. We really need that. Now, going back to convergence, the future really isn't about convergence. Security is not a converged issue. It's a complex issue. You can't just teach simple facts, simple tools, and expect people to be able to solve things outside of the domain that they live in. You have to give people the understanding that this is complex. It's not simply interconnected. It's not even simply overlapping. It's all one big globular mess. For fans of Doctor Who, it's all timey-wimey. It all ties together, and we have to give people the abstract tools to really grasp that and understand that. Thank you.